Why, hello, you folks out there in YouTube land. Thrash Pondo here, and I'm going to make a very, very, very labored attempt at content today. Yes, I have been promising my friends of channel another wretched recap, and I was talking with mega friend of channel the other day, Atomic Snack Bar, and he mentioned Richard Corben, my favorite comic artist of all time. And I decided what better way to both wretched and recap than to do, I guess, what one could possibly call a retrospective of the artwork of Richard Corben. So without further, I'll do. Let's see. We open the book, and oh, here's something cute. It's a caricature of, well, one of my favorite presidents, Ronald Reagan. Uh, well, Tommy and I always loved the works of Richard Corbin, so I will move forward from that. Let's see what else we got going on here. Um, I'm just going to kind of gloss through this. I mean, I'm going to show you the art. I'm not going to have much to say about most of them, but here we have a nice picture of a spaceship with some people on the spaceship. Here we see something you see a lot in Corman. There's always some very muscular dude fighting some scary creatures with some really hot women thrown into the mix. Many of you who remember the heavy metal uh, album cover, the heavy metal movie poster, one of them at least, and just that there's an iconic scene where Den of Earth is there fighting the massive hordes with the really hot girl. It's very Conan-esque. That was also based on an earlier work he did, but I don't have that, so I'm moving forward. Here we see a particularly suggestive shot of a scantily clad woman being held in a marginally inappropriate way by a robot. That's pretty much all I can say about that, so I'll move forward. Um, oh, by the way, in case you see like little green splotches here and there, that's because some of these have work that borders on inappropriate. Some of Corbin's art could be seen as bordering on softcore pornography. In the same way, you could say the United States borders on Canada. But moving forward, here we see this one's kind of odd. It's this bizarre alien-like creature with an entourage of very attractive young people at their feet, and I'm not going to get into what that one's about. But oh, here's something I do know of firsthand. This was a comic. Now, as of course, as most of you remember, Richard Corbin got his start in the San Francisco underground back in the 70s as part of the comic artists who are going to great lengths to not have their comic censored by the hideous, obscene, mean, fascist like comic book code. And here we have something called Slow Down. I actually have both of these buried somewhere. And a lot of them were, again, an excuse to have a lot of sex and drugs and rock and roll, but some of that's very good science fiction stories. This one I don't have, probably just as well. Death Rattle. I actually have a couple of these Death Rattles. Oh, by the way, as I'm sure you folks know, he did an awful lot of work with zombies. He and his associate Bernie Wrightston. Here we have a particularly good shot. He loved to do like dinosaur monster type things. So here we see like I guess you'd call it a lizard man fighting birds. It would seem in this case. And I always liked how he did lizard men. Sometimes when other artists do lizard men, they're more like your tip what they would call the reptile people of today, where they're like dinosaurian, where they have flat faces, much like we do. I always thought dinosaur people should have faces like, well, dinosaurs. And here we see some type of bizarre Slenderman cult. I wonder if this is where the idea of the Slenderman came from. Because here we have Ma Pa Kettle, and this like dude who's counting his last of his numbered days. Oh, and of course, here we see something you see it so often. Again, in classic, you see the dinosaur and the anachronistic cave person. This cave person is actually in a tree, has very well groomed hair, but the Triceratops is trying to knock down the tree, which is funny because Triceratopses were, of course, vegetarian. Here we see the evolution of Den. Den, of course, is the character we boast. Blah, 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 that's all, folks. Most best known. from Heavy Metal. He was the John Candy character. And oh, and here we see this is Filgor? Fulgor. He was an anti-hero. He was sort of a post-apocalyptic Conan the Barbarian. Although it's like Teenage Cavemen. You're never sure if it's actually some type of medieval period or an alternate universe or like in Wizards where it's a post-apocalyptic high fantasy style world. And here you see him. He's got a snake cult and he's like holding a torch to the snake cult. Oh, and here we see these are sort of code monsters. And oh, look, very muscular guy with a sword and shield is killing creepy creatures to rescue some type of high priestess. How many times have we seen that? Here we see some various cult style creatures. He loved in his worlds. He always had there was always like some kind of weird, bizarre cults going on, and people were taking part in and sacrificing, and very, very, very Roman-esque. Uh, Here we see this is called the Wood Demon, and it's very. And I'm gonna try to get this so the light isn't shining on it properly. This is kind of a slick one. She's looking the wrong way, and the demon's coming from behind the tree. And as you notice, the demon has this very warped, crazy smile. He loves showing creatures with like crazy dental appendages. Here we see an air battle. I believe this is also Filgor as well. Um, Wreck and Rule, which I believe is I think an homage to Rock and Roll, only not anthropomorphic, more like just anthro. And just kind of showing you these guys here. Dark Mists. This is called Dark Mists. And one of the things I found out about Corben, actually, a lot of his work oftentimes appears very, very dark, or darker than the normal human eye. He had an eye condition actually where he actually saw things as darker than a normal person would, and that actually came out in his art. That's why oftentimes his art tended to be on the dimmer side. But this is just you see these people, either they're soldiers or I guess research archaeologists stumbling upon a demon accidentally. Kind of this is kind of a cool image. It's basically like just something that looks like it was from a horror movie that was never actually made. This is really cool. This was something called Fire and Ice. Bite my tongue, Fire and Ice. That was a different work. The Children of Fire. There, Bob, try to get right. Children of Fire. This is really slick. It was sort of alternate universe type situation. You got generational colonization, people meeting a wizard who's trying to take over the universe, plans within plans, pirates, and all that sort of run. It's a really great high fantasy. I highly recommend it. And it's funny because I remember when I was in college, the cool thing about this was the alien language is written in a code, and you had to figure out the code yourself. You could extrapolate what they were saying from inferences, but again, I actually figured out the code. It was very fun. Here we see his depiction of the mutant turtles, and I think that's wild because I actually huge turtle fan. I was actually collecting the mutant turtles before they were popular, when they were still independent comics being printed in Northampton, Massachusetts. Here we see again, and again, Den actually started out. He was a character that it was in a post-apocalyptic setting. He was basically a survivor of the apocalypse that went around of World War III type nuclear radiation. That's hence the no hair, and he went around having these adventures, and that evolved into actually several other characters. But it was sort of a whole progression of various characters. Here we see this is almost Lovecraftian with the divers being attacked by the octopus style thing. I love Den here fighting this like again. It's sort of it's part mutant and part like giant rat thing. And we close on this I believe this is a depiction of him as he would see himself in future years. That's what I was thought of when I saw this, but it's just basically an old man sitting under the oak, and it's called Under the Oak. But anyway, what better way to end than right here with Under the Oak? And and here we see the back. Again, I love the cover art to this because it's sort of like Ansel Adams. But then, of course, when you look closely, there's a really hot girl just sort of uh, chilling here. Some people say, "Whoa, she's dead." She's not dead. She's just like curled up, um, waiting for waiting for the world to change. I don't know, but anyway, he probably wanted to show her nude as he so often did, but again, wouldn't have been able to get that on the cover. But anyway, that's all I got for you folks today. I am going on tonight. We do have the live show. We're going to be talking about famous Hollywood scandals. I hope you come by and watch it. If you're watching this in reruns, what the heck? Watch the Hollywood scandals in reruns too. But anyway, this is all I got for you for now. Until next time, be good, be safe, be careful. I'm looking forward to seeing you all again very, 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 very soon. Peace.